Hey everybody, welcome to KlingsporFIT tonight. This is our last episode before the Thanksgiving holiday, so you're going to find several things regarding Thanksgiving foods and Thanksgiving meals and Thanksgiving health. This is actually our first episode since Daylight Savings Time ended, so Madeline, if it hadn't occurred to you, we'll be leaving in the dark tonight after the show. Just wanted to share that just because it's sort of a little time stamp of where we are on this thing. I wanted to share with you a little cute idea that I've used in the past at my house for Thanksgiving. And you can take a pumpkin, and mine was a real pumpkin, and I call it the thankful pumpkin. And you can put it at the entrance of your house, and you can put a Sharpie down there, and you be the first one to write on the pumpkin, "I am thankful for," and then write a few things that you're thankful for. And if you're having relatives over and you want them to read that you're thankful for them, then make sure and include them. So anyway, that's just a cute little idea that can share your thankfulness and your gratitude with your family and friends when you have them over for Thanksgiving. So now on with the show. First we have Tammy Guess. She's going to come in and share some information on COVID. And if you're like I am, you and your family have probably started referring to things in time that, for example, my husband said, "Now, when did we meet that lady that we just got the email from?" And what I had to say was, "Oh, we met her right before COVID." So it's sort of becoming a point in time where we make reference to other things. So anyway, Tammy, come and tell us all about it.
Thank you, Lorie. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for joining us. And with our normal review, we're going to talk a little bit about the numbers and where we are locally in the U.S. We'll start with Catawba County. As of our last meeting, there were 304 new cases reported in a 7-day average. And as of last Wednesday, there was 225, leaving the total cases now at 25,441 for Catawba County. Our vaccine rate has changed from 49% to 50%. So not a whole lot of change in the vaccine rate, but the numbers are still trending a little bit down. For North Carolina, as of our last meeting, there was 1,340 cases reported, newly reported cases, in a 7-day period. And as of today, there was 1,243 reported. The vaccine rate, as of our last meeting, was 66%. Now it's at 67%. Now for our U.S. trend. The U.S. trend, as we talked about last time, was trending down. It is still trending down, but as you can see, as of November 8th, it's kind of leveled out and from our last meeting. And so we're averaging, last time we were averaging in a 7-day average, 70,291 cases. Now it's trending up just a tad. Like I say, it's kind of flattening out, 73,875. So we can only hope that the trends will start changing. And then as our transmission map that we look at each week, we see a change there. And the change we see is that California has gone from yellow back to red, so that's a high transmission area. We see a change with Illinois going from red to orange, from orange back to red. And then we've added 2 more states that are trending down to the substantial in the orange, which is Texas and Tennessee. We'll continue to look at this and see how it goes, but we are adding some states that are coming down, so hopefully we'll get there. And then, of course, the next slide is for the vaccine, where we are with vaccinations. Our last meeting, there had been 414 million doses given, and the vaccination rate was 57.9%. As of yesterday, there was 432 million doses given, and the vaccination rate for U.S. is 58.4%. And as we always say, we want to continue doing our part here at Klingspor. We'll continue to wear masks, social distance, and we ask employees not to come to work if there's any symptoms to help control the spread. And we are continuing to monitor these trends and anything with the mandates that are in the news right now. And as we get information, we will be communicating more of this soon. Thank you and have a good evening. Lorie?
Thank you, Tammy. Next, we have Dr. George Place, who is going to share the top 10 tips for enjoying Thanksgiving and feeling healthy too.
Hey everyone, George Place here, and I'm back to talk with you about a requested topic. We hear quite a bit about this, protein, and specifically the building blocks of protein, which are amino acids. So proteins and amino acids in your diet. And in this presentation, I'm also going to, Thanksgiving's coming up, so I'm going to give you some tips about Thanksgiving, and maybe I know it's on the minds of a lot of people, gaining weight around the holidays. And so maybe a few tips that might be helpful for you. Keep them or throw them out as you see fit. So let me start off with daily recommendations of protein. And the recommended daily allowance is really a minimum for protein. And that works out to about 10% of your total diet. If you want to do the gram per kilogram basis, it's 0.8 gram per kilogram, and you can kind of back that out. I'll tell you, the truth of the matter, though, is a lot of people talk about protein. Most Americans get 16% protein from their total calories. So in other words, protein deficiency is really rare in the United States. We might see it time to time with people with eating disorders, and unfortunately that would commonly be teenage girls. Or you might see that with seniors over 70 for one reason or another. They just are not eating, or they're not taking care of themselves very well. But for the most part, we do get enough protein, although that's disputed, right? You can go into the research and find plenty of dietitians that say we are not getting enough protein. One thing to consider if you have any doubts, if you are protein deficient, which again is very rare, it will show up usually in the big three, which is your hair, your fingernails, and your skin. And so you'll just start to get hair that's thinning out, your fingernails will get brittle, or you start to have peeling or skin deficiency problems. So if you're seeing any of those signs and you're already wondering whether or not you're getting enough protein, it might be a great idea to go to your doctor and maybe get a blood test, maybe talk about your diet with a doctor. However, I do want to say that one of the concerns that comes about is, are we eating too much protein? And it really depends on your level of activity. It depends on your total body weight and how much lean muscle mass you have. So for athletes that are doing maybe a lot of very vigorous exercise, they're doing lots of micro tears in their muscles, and they require more protein to build back that damage. So obviously an elite athlete is going to need way more protein than, say, a sedentary person. So your level of activity and your body weight is going to have a big say about this. But I do want you to think that if you're eating high protein bars at every meal, if you're putting protein powder into all your breakfast shakes and getting all of this there's a lot of processed protein out there, and it's really easy to eat excess amounts of protein. If you're not doing a lot of exercise, but you've really ramped up your protein, do be aware that you might be putting your kidneys under excess work, excess strain. And certainly for 1 out of 3 people, this can be a concern because 1 out of 3 people have a kidney problem, primarily because of type 2 diabetes or high blood pressure. So you do want to be aware that you can go overboard on protein for sure. However, I do want to talk with you about quality of protein. So not all protein is created equal, and you've probably heard at one point or another that there are foods that are complete proteins, and there are amino acids that are essential amino acids. And what that means is an essential amino acid is one that your body cannot make. You have to consume it from a food source. And there's 9 such amino acids that are essential. And so a lot of times a protein deficiency is going to come because of lack of those essential amino acids. And so when you're eating protein sources, you do want to think about eating complete protein sources. So for my friends that are vegetarians or my friends that are vegans, you can certainly get complete protein, but you do want to think about combining things from the grains and nuts category, which has lots of one type of amino acid, but it's deficient in lysine, which is another. You want to combine a meal with those from your legume family, the beans and peas and lentils and so forth, that are going to be high in lysine but deficient in those others. Combining those two makes a complete protein meal. So the classic example would be something like beans and rice. And so if you are not eating animal products, you can certainly get enough protein from plant food. You just want to be aware of combining the items from both lists that I have here on this slide. And so, for example, in thinking about individual food sources, your top 10 protein sources, if you're a vegan, you can see there's a number of different items up here. This is just one category. By the way, seitan, I've had this before. Do you know what that is? I did not. I had to look that up. It is actually hydrated gluten. So do be aware that if you're trying to not eat a lot of gluten, seitan is not going to be the protein for you, because gluten is the protein that we find in grains like wheat. And so seitan is just a large concentration of that gluten, of hydrated gluten. Not that it's a bad thing. I just know that for some people, gluten doesn't fit very well with their body, and they have an adverse reaction to it. So lots of good sources for vegans. And for that matter, vegetarians have even more options, because you can get animal products in there like cheeses, which are complete proteins, as well as Greek yogurt is an incredible source of protein. And eggs are an excellent complete protein. So vegans get a few more options in there, but still lots of good plant-based items. So, all right, let me shift gears away from protein. But of course, thinking of protein, everybody is eating quite a bit of turkey and other protein items. So let me give you a few tips you might consider if you're concerned about gaining those pounds around Thanksgiving. So first of all, hey, if you're part of the committee that's planning the meal, or maybe you're taking a dish to wherever you're going, think about looking up some of the healthy side dishes. There's lots of very good things to eat that are going to boost your vegetable consumption. And by the way, when you're eating a lot of vegetables and fiber, you're eating a lot of water, and it's going to help you feel full. So getting more fiber in the diet during Thanksgiving is going to give you that feeling of satiety much faster, so that you don't make a bad mistake when you go back for fourths and fifths, like I do sometimes. And here's a big one. Get active before Thanksgiving. You know, for example, if you can go for a big walk, or even go for one of those turkey trots or events that they have if you're in a bigger city, boy, that is a great way to get your body already burning calories, so that when you're eating a lot, you're actually feeding muscles, not just storing it all as excess fat. And yes, of course, we eat stuffing on Thanksgiving, but it doesn't mean that you have to eat until you're stuffed. And this guy looks like he has pain on his face, but he's still going. That's, again, I do that, right? It's just the food is so good, you feel like, man, I gotta honor my relatives and eat everything that they brought. But you don't have to do that. Staying hydrated. So often we'll get feelings of hunger because really we're a little dehydrated. And so if you can go into the Thanksgiving event very well hydrated, you're less likely to overeat. So drink a lot of water and try and get hydrated an hour before the meal. And it will really lessen some of those big urges that might come up and make you do something that you regret. And of course, you know, starting tradition. Thanksgiving is about tradition. Why not start an activity tradition? You know, one recommendation, how about a push-up contest? You might be surprised how many push-ups Grandma can do. She might even whoop your butt at push-ups. So give it a shot. Try something fun. Maybe an after Thanksgiving dinner tag football game, or again, a hike in the woods, or who knows what's available, but maybe some activity, not just watching football and sitting for the rest of the afternoon. Be aware that health is not just about not gaining weight, but we also don't want to get sick. And there can be a lot of foodborne illness around all of the food associated with Thanksgiving. So for example, make sure that you're cooking everything at the proper temperature and you're checking it. And of course, how you store food afterwards is a big tip as well. Make sure that you're not storing things in great big crocks, but instead flat pans. You never want anything that goes into the refrigerator to have more than 3 inches of food around it. For example, if I take a big bowl of, I don't know, hot mashed potatoes, and I put this big bowl like this, well, you can imagine the center of those mashed potatoes are insulated by more than 3 inches on all sides. So the core of that mashed potato ball will stay well above 40 degrees for many, many hours, even a day or two. And anytime the temperature is above 40, 45 degrees, bacteria can grow and in some cases double in their population every 20 minutes. So anytime you're storing food, never allow it to be more than a few inches thick. So put your leftovers in flat pans and you'll reduce foodborne illness also. Another big important thing about Thanksgiving, eat breakfast. If you don't eat anything all day, you're going to have this starvation that's going to drive you to do things that you might regret later on. So again, go into the meal already partially satiated, well hydrated, and then you can enjoy it, not just eat like you've been starving for days. Another great one, chew slowly. I'm sure you've heard before that the signal from your stomach to your brain saying, hey, I'm full, it takes several minutes. So if you go slow, that feeling of satiety will overcome you and you won't eat 5 pieces of pumpkin pie. Alcohol, oh my gosh. Maybe this is the fun part that makes conversation tolerable around your table. And so I certainly don't want to remove that tool from your toolbox, but do keep in mind that the alcohol calories easily convert to fat. So you might not want to have that whole bottle of wine just to tolerate the uncle whose political beliefs are so different from yours. Maybe just 1 glass of wine and then change the subject. And remember what this is about, right? Focus on friends and family. Don't make food the centerpiece of the whole event, right? Really savor your time with your family and think about making your Thanksgiving traditions around that. Food doesn't have to be the centerpiece of this holiday. Okay, one last thing. I do want to address something that we all hear. Is it true that turkey makes you sleepy? And that myth is really based upon the amino acid tryptophan. And so on the left here, I'm showing you the structure of tryptophan. And the question is, when you consume tryptophan, does it make you sleepy? Well, there is some real basis to this idea. So again, look at the molecular structure on the left, that's tryptophan. The molecule on the right is serotonin. And you can see that serotonin looks awfully similar to tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid that is a precursor to the production of serotonin. And serotonin is also a molecule that's involved in the production of melatonin. Do you recognize these 2 molecules? They're both very important in your sleep cycles. So having serotonin at one part of the day and then melatonin helps you to go to sleep and, at a certain time. So serotonin and melatonin production are very important in sleep. So it's not inaccurate that tryptophan is not related to that. It is related to that. But the myth comes from the idea that turkey somehow has higher levels of tryptophan than other foods that we eat. Yes, there's tryptophan in turkey, but there's plenty of things that you may be eating particularly if you are accustomed to eating animal products that are high in tryptophan and not on this list. Some cheeses have more tryptophan per gram than turkey itself. So bottom line, there's a ton of things that we're eating that have tryptophan, and if eating them always made us sleepy, we would be sleepy quite a bit. Probably what makes us sleepy is we eat probably well over 1,500 calories and our body can't process it, and all the blood is down in our stomach trying to do that digestive work. So there you go, myth busted. And if you do get a little sleepy on Thanksgiving, don't feel bad about it. It's just a normal thing. So enjoy that. And if you have any questions about things I've talked about this evening, again, you know where to reach me. Shoot me an email, or if you maybe know something that I didn't mention, or you have a different point of view, I'd love to hear from you. I'm always learning from people that I talk to, and I certainly am not an expert on all these things for sure. I always like to learn new things, so share it with me. And also, I want to remind you, if you want to start getting some training goals in place, because I know January, a lot of times people start really thinking about fitness, why not start a little early? And that can have some real benefits if you're concerned about putting on extra pounds during the holidays. Get something going right now, and as you're building a little muscle mass, if you're eating extra, that extra food can feed those muscles rather than maybe storing up where you don't want it to. So shoot me an email, give me a call. I would love to do a little bit of training work with you, and I look forward to helping you in the future.
So now you know the truth about tryptophan. Thank you, George. We appreciate all that valuable information. So next, for our food prep segment of the show, we have, first of all, Cooking with Pajah, where she's going to make stuffed mushrooms. And then we have two very special guests from Tijuana, Mexico. We have Ed Slinksy and Martine Medina, who will be preparing Ed's world-famous guacamole, backed by popular demand.
Hi, welcome back to Cooking with Pajah. That's me. Today we're going to make stuffed mushrooms. Sounds super excited. So I'm going to start off by chopping some celery. Finely chopping celery. Okay, so now we have our celery chopped. We're going to move on to an onion. This is a sweet onion. Okay. We're also going to chop the onions as well. Okay. And these are the stems of the baby bella mushrooms that we're using. So we're also going to chop those up. We're also going to chop up 1 apple. And we're also going to chop some fresh cranberries. Okay. So we're gonna saute the onions, celery, and chopped stem with a tablespoon of vegan butter. And this is, I can't believe it's not butter, it's vegan butter. Okay, so go ahead and put that butter in there. I feel like I should have some more butter. All right, so we'll let that sit in there for a second. So we're gonna do onions, celery, and the chopped stems. So we're gonna cook that with the butter, and it says to add a tablespoon of water if needed to get it soft. So I'm going to add 1 for now. Let's just see how that goes. So we're going to cook this, the chopped onions, chopped celery, and chopped baby bella stems until they're a little bit soft. So now I'm going to add the chopped apple into this. Cook this apple in here with this for about 2 minutes. That actually smells really good. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is spend about 2 minutes with the apples in there with the onions and the celery and baby bella stems. I'm gonna reduce the heat to low, and we're going to add the seasoning broth and the breadcrumbs as well as the cranberries. So the seasonings, we have sage, so I'm gonna toss that in there, parsley, dried parsley. And we also have some thyme. We're gonna do a dash of that. And so the seasoning, so we're using this organic vegetable broth. Pour that in there. Along with that, we're going to also do some breadcrumbs. Toss that in there. And then we're gonna add the cranberries that we chopped up earlier. So we're gonna add that in there. Okay, I'm gonna stir this up. Oh, it smells really good. Yum. All right, and then it says to cover for about 7 to 8 minutes. So that's what we're about to do on a low heat. Since this has been cooking on a low temperature for about 7 to 8 minutes, we're gonna fluff it with some forks. Oh my gosh, y'all, this smells so good. All right. Now, this is optional, but I'm gonna add some chopped walnuts into this stuffing. So we're gonna just add some here. If you don't want walnuts, we don't need walnuts. All right, so fluffed it, but I want to get the walnuts mixed up pretty good in there. Don't want to scratch the pan with my fork. So we're gonna just do that. All right, and I'm gonna turn this stove off. All right. Now we're going to start stuffing the mushrooms. So I'm going to leave this here. Just fluff some more. Okay. So we got ourselves, get rid of this cutting board here, and oil pan. I'm gonna spray it with some extra virgin olive oil, non-stick spray. So I'm gonna spray my pan, and we're gonna get these baby bella mushrooms, and we're gonna start stuffing them. Oh, I cannot wait to try this. All right. Okay, so now that we finished stuffing all these baby bella mushrooms, oh my gosh, this looks so yummy. I can't wait to eat them. So what we're gonna do is we're going to cook them in the oven at 350 degrees for about 16 to 18 minutes. And just be sure to periodically check your stuffed mushrooms. Make sure we don't overcook them. So that's what we're about to do, okay? So my oven's already been set to 350 while I've been prepping this whole time. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in there. Okay, so the stuffed mushrooms have been in the oven at 350 for about, I think 16 to 18 minutes now. So we're gonna pull them out and see how they're doing. They're done cooking. We're not gonna check to see how they're doing. They're done cooking. Oh my gosh, this is delicious. And that's it. I'm gonna put this on the little platter here. Super excited. You guys, they smell really, really good. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope if you try out this recipe that you enjoy it. Thanks.
All right, well, never a dull moment at Klingspor, right? We are all about trying new stuff, especially in IP, so new food, bring it on. We love trying out any kind of new food. That can be a new path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you volunteer for that?
Absolutely.
Me
yeah.
too.
Volunteer for
Absolutely, right? Anytime you guys want to try out new recipes, those stuffed mushrooms were the bomb. They were delicious.
I love how they had the Thanksgiving stuffing taste rather than traditional stuffed mushroom. You get to add a nice crunch to it.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, it was very tasty. I'm looking forward to making them in a few weeks. So I have some mushroom loving people in my family, so I think they'll be excited to try that.
Yeah, for Thanksgiving, that would make a nice appetizer.
I think so.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back at the Klingspor Sound Studio and to talk to you tonight about our family guacamole and why it's so important during Thanksgiving. Before we get into the guacamole, I have to share with you our family stress. Every year we say we're going to have our turkey at 1 o'clock, and it never happens. It's always at 3 or 4 o'clock. So to get past that, we look for snacks, we're ravaging for crackers, people are threatening to go to McDonald's. So the way to do that is to have some appetizers ready between, for us, we know it's going to be an hour late, an hour and a half late. The turkey, I don't know why it takes longer to cook, but that's how it is. They're big and they're preparing it. So we do guacamole. And the guacamole is a family thing we do. We're going to make it today. Martin's my assistant. He's going to help me do this, our controller here from Mexico. And then we're going to talk about all the different ingredients, the options that you have to do it with, and to customize it to what your family likes. So the avocado is a very special fruit. People think it's a vegetable, but it's a fruit. It's been around a long time. They trace it back 10,000 years. The Aztecs, the Mayans, all these guys over there, they just love these things, and they've been eating them for thousands of years. Some of the benefits of the avocado is that it helps reduce our cholesterol. It also has a lot of potassium. For example, an avocado almost has twice as much potassium as a banana. So there's 975 milligrams of potassium in the avocado and only a little over 500 milligrams in a banana. There's a lot of properties to help protect against cancer and just healthy lifestyle. And I think they taste good. Some people don't like the taste, but I'm a big fan of avocados. Most of the avocados in the US come from California, where I'm from, and San Diego. 40% of them come from San Diego. So I have them close by me. I haven't seen any trees, but if I had a tree, I'd be the most popular guy in my block because everyone would be asking me for avocados, and I'd be happy to give them away because every tree gives 500 avocados a year. So you'd have so many avocados, you wouldn't know what to do with them. The other history, just trivia, is the Europeans discovered the avocado when the Spanish came and conquered Mexico. They found the avocado. They brought it back. Big success. They're making guacamole, you know, in Spain, Italy, all these beautiful countries. And it's just spread through there. It was a high-level dish to have and very popular. Funny enough, though, in the United States, avocados didn't become popular until 1950. For some reason, in California, again, it started in salads, and then now they have them in hamburgers and everything. Quesadillas, and Florida as well started around this time. But now you find it everywhere. Avocados are in every supermarket in the world. My favorite ones are the small ones, these Hass ones, especially from Mexico. They're very soft and they're very creamy. They're very excellent. The bigger they are, I find them to be, they're chunky and they're hard. Some tips when you buy them, sometimes they're super hard. They're not ready to, they're not ripe. What I do, and what a lot of people recommend, is you put them in a bag with maybe 2 or 3 bananas, wait a day, 2 days. The bananas produce a gas and it ripens the avocado and makes it nice and soft, and you're good to go. The other thing is if you're making guacamole the day before or for the Super Bowl and you want to have everything ready when your people come, or for Thanksgiving, a lot of people think that if you have the pit and you just put it inside the guacamole, that'll protect it from turning black. In reality, that's a wives' tale. That's not true. It's a chemical effect with oxygen. So it oxidizes and it starts turning black. So it does look nice, so we don't like that. So what you do is you make your guacamole, you put it in a bowl, and you fill it with maybe a 1/4 inch of water on top, and you put the saran wrap, put it in the refrigerator. The next day you take it out, dump out the water, mix it a little bit, and you're good to go. That should be a perfect guacamole. So those are the 2 big tips. One thing with the shells, be careful if you have animals. It's dangerous for dogs, so we don't leave them lying around in the backyard. Like my kids, they like throwing them at each other. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the production of the guacamole. We're going to do 2 versions. One is the traditional guacamole, where we're going to mash is my favorite part. My son Danny, he loves mashing. My son Alex likes shopping, and I like eating it, so I don't try and do too much. But we're going to do the guacamole, traditional guacamole, and then we're going to do a salsa guacamole. The salsa guacamole is going to have some chunks of guacamole with habanero, really spicy, and then the normal guacamole, I'm going to do it style Ed with everything except for garlic. Today we're not going to use garlic, and I'm going to use jalapeno peppers, which were a little bit spicy. We tried a few this morning and really kicky. All right. So I need that. What's the black bowl called, Martin?
Molcajete.
Molcajete. Molcajete. So molcajete is made from volcanic stone. Most Mexicans have one in their house. Used to make traditionally maize to make their tortillas. You grind the corn, and from there you get the maize to make the tortillas. So I'm going to start by first putting a few of these cubes in here. And let's see if I can make a mess and splash this all over the place. So I like cut them in cubes to make it easier to crush. So we got this. So here we go. Start the crushing process. And when you buy your avocados, I would buy them a few days before just to make sure that they're ripe. My experience is sometimes when we do it, it doesn't, they're not ready, and then you got to put them in the bag and it takes time. So just to be safe, that's what I would do. All right, so it's coming out great. Some of the things you want to look for when you open it up, that it's nice and green, and at the edges it's dark green, no black spots, and it just makes a very nice, a nice guacamole. So I'm going to take a few more of these guys. Okay. Then we're going to add in some lime. The lime that I recommend is the key lime. The smaller lime has a lot of juice, and compared to the gringo limes that are not so juicy. All right, so now we're gonna put in some lime juice. Martine, do you mind holding that for me? Or yeah, go ahead and squeeze. Look at all that juice. My gosh. I think just a half of one was going to work. Okay. So we're going to stir this in. All right. Now, Martine, we're going to put in a little of everything. So go ahead and put a... There you go. There's the onion. We like the white onion. The red onion is good too, but I like the white. We use the Roma tomatoes. What I like to do is take out the seeds. We got the cilantro. And best thing is just rip them up when you get them on the stem and just have the leaves. And then some chili. Yeah. We're going to put this over here. And that's kind of what it looks like. From there, we go ahead and mix it in. And that's what I call the Ed guacamole. That's my style. Some people like the garlic, crushed garlic inside too. But that's pretty easy, and it's fun to do as a family, and everyone does it, right? So that's version 1 of our, I'm going to pass that to you on this side. And then we're going to take the tomatillo sauce, which is green tomatoes, puree, without any sodium or anything. They sell them in the market. I'm partial to Goya, or you could buy the green tomatoes, boil them, crush them, but today we didn't have time, so we used this. So in this salsa, which is different from the guacamole, it's lighter. It's just a sauce. It's works almost like a salsa. I'll put this on this side. And you could also use it to make tacos and different things. So what we do at our house is we take a good portion of the cubes, put them inside. They marinate in there. They're little happy little cubes in there, marinating in the tomatillo sauce. Okay. Now we're going to put in the good one, the habanero, spicy guy. And then some onion and cilantro. Thank you, Martine. We'll put 2 spoons of the onion and then put some cilantro in there. There we go. Just stir that up. And there you go. It's an avocado salsa with tomato puree of tomatillo, the green tomato. And that makes it very light, and that should keep everyone happy for about an hour before the turkey's ready. So today we have a guacamole and a salsa avocado. I want to, from the Mexico team, wish everyone a happy upcoming Thanksgiving and appreciation to Mr. Klingspor for doing these online courses. A lot of times I can't go to all of them, but the ones I've gone to have been very information useful for my life. Actually, my cholesterol levels have gone down, and I'm having the benefit of this in my life as more energy, more different things, and seeing all my numbers go in the right way when I do my annual exam. So I appreciate that. A lot of companies do different things, but Klingspor is really stands out as a very company that cares about its employees and looks to the well-being and the health. So with that, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Martine.
Happy Thanksgiving also.
So thank you, and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Have a good evening.
All right, hello everybody. It's George Place again with the Cooperative Extension Service, and we're here to do the third grocery shopping hack in our series. And this one I wanted to talk about some hidden toxins or other ingredients in your food that may not be doing you a service as far as your overall wellness goes. So let's start with a very common one, sodium nitrate. And where we see this primarily is if you eat any processed meats. And I gotta say, I don't buy hot dogs, but boy, when I go to an event and somebody has hot dogs, I'm gonna eat one. And so probably from time to time, as long as it's not a regular part of your diet, it's probably not gonna do a ton of harm. But sodium nitrate is in all processed meats for the most part. Every now and again, you can get preservative-free deli meat if you're someone that buys meat. And I know a lot of folks at Klingspor are vegan or vegetarian, but for folks that are consuming a little bit of processed meat, do be aware of the sodium nitrate in there. And of course, it's always good to know, why do they even put it in there? Flavor and preserving is the main reason. Also sometimes to get that color pink, which is a little creepy to me, but hey, marketing folks know what sells. And so they put that chemical in that food. And I tell you, just recently, and this was made very popular on the news, the World Health Organization, because of that preservative and others, put some of these processed meats in the group 1 as far as it being a likely cause of cancer. And that's other things that are in that group 1 classification include smoking, ultraviolet light, alcohol. One really important thing, by the way, in that grouping, because I think that I hear a lot of different discussions about how things fall in the grouping schedule. It does not mean just because all are in the same category, for example, bacon and smoking are all group 1 carcinogens. That does not mean that bacon equally causes cancer as smoking. The risks are not the same. It's just whether or not we know that they are carcinogenic. So do keep that in mind. It's not suggesting that bacon is as deadly as smoking for your health, but it is a carcinogen. So you should know that sodium nitrate and other meat preservatives aren't very good for your health. Okay, next ingredient to just be on the lookout for is sulfites. And I'll tell you, for the most part, I think sulfites are less concerning, maybe the least concerning that I'm going to mention today. But if you like to eat dehydrated fruit, and then there's all kinds of other processed foods, you can look on the ingredient list and note whether or not there's sulfites in them. Why do we add it? Well, it's an anti-browning agent, also a preservative. Sometimes it's used to bleach foods or stabilize colors. And, you know, really the main thing the reason I'm even bringing this up is for probably the majority of the population, if you're eating a little bit of sulfites, it might not affect you. But anywhere from 1 to 5% of the population may be having a negative response to sulfites, particularly if you have asthma. And so as you go into the sulfite thing, if you feel a weird effect and you're regularly eating sulfites in your diet, consider removing them for a month and see. Sometimes there's a mystery ingredient in your diet that might be causing a bad feeling, a skin ailment. I'll share with you, for example, I used to have terrible rosacea on both sides of my nose, and it lasted for years. I took several things out of my diet, so I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it went away. So sometimes removing things from your diet can really help you. Sulfites might be one that you might want to consider pulling out and see if that has a benefit to you. Okay, Yellow dye number 5 and number 6. This is like in all the processed foods that we love to eat. I see honeycomb cereal in the back there. I don't know if they even make that anymore, but I used to love that as a kid. And it probably is why I was such a spazzo as a kid as well, because there is research showing that these dyes may be increasing hyperactivity in children. So why do we add it? Well, of course, anytime a food is very colorful, it makes it more appetizing. And in fact, in some cases, it's suggested that these false colors make the food look fresh, which I think is a little ironic. So, you know, when you think about all these dyes that you may be consuming, it's kind of the antithesis of the health food discussion of try to have a rainbow on your plate, right? A rainbow of all the different plant foods. You could have some reds and some oranges. But if all of your processed foods have a rainbow of colors, as one agency called it, it may be a rainbow of risks. So I thought that was a little much, but it definitely is probably not doing your health much good. So a few things to know about yellow dye number 5. It's altogether banned in Austria and Norway. And in the European Union, they require a label that says this may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. So the research is substantial enough that in other countries or the entire European Union, they do labeling. Here in the United States, we concluded it doesn't pose enough threat to justify labeling. So you make the choice whether or not you think that this is something that you want to be consuming or you want kids in your life to be consuming. But there's other research that has been done in vitro. In other words, we put some different types of cells in a petri dish, add yellow dye number 5 and see what happens. And there's suggestion from studies like that yellow dye number 5 is damaging to cells as well. It's hard to see that when they do actual studies with people and so forth. So something to consider whether or not you want to be consuming those dyes. And again, if you're someone that suffers asthma, yellow dye number 5 and yellow dye number 6 may be having an adverse effect on that condition. All right, trans fats. Trans fats are probably a much more serious element that we find in our diet. And they're pretty ubiquitous in processed foods until recently. There was a 2018 ban by the FDA on trans fats. However, there's been some loopholes allowing some companies to continue because it was difficult for them to stop. And of course, any food that was produced with trans fat that might still be on the shelf, because many of these foods, the very fact that they have trans fats allows them to be more stable on the shelf. They may or may not have trans fats. So although there is a ban on trans fat use in our food system, they're still out there. And you want to be aware, take a look on the label. And, you know, one thing to consider, labels are sometimes a little tricky. So for example, this label that I'm showing on the presentation says trans fat 0 grams. Well, that may be true, but, let me back up a slide. That may be true that technically there's 0 grams, but if that product has less than 0.5 grams, it can list it as 0. So I'll show you a couple of examples of that in a moment. But the other thing I want to mention before I get there, there's other sources of trans fat. For example, French fries or any type of fried food. It used to be that trans fats were very popular for frying because they could stay in the fryer for many days, right? You have to imagine if a restaurant has tight profit margins, switching out the oil regularly or even daily is an expense. It's a lot of labor. Nobody wants to do that. So the longer you can leave that oil in there and keep using it, it's going to be better for business, right? Well, that also means more trans fats. And so even now, as they've shifted away from the use of actual hydrogenated oils in this frying oil, any oil, any vegetable oil that's being used at high temperatures and prolonged for many hours or days, you start to get the production of trans fats. How much? It's hard to say, right? Who knows what we're eating and how long it's been fried for? So, no one's going around testing this. So you do want to be aware that if you're eating at restaurants that maybe haven't changed their frying oil for a few days, chances are you're probably eating a high percentage trans fat oil on your food. And if you're doing that regularly, this is one of the worst fats that can come into your diet, because not only does it mess with your good cholesterol, it lowers the numbers of your good cholesterol at the same time as it raises the numbers of your bad cholesterols. This is an easy visualization about trans fat. Trans fat is solid at room temperature. So imagine that solid fat just sitting in a blood vessel, potentially waiting to break off as a clot. So not something that you really want in your diet. Another couple things to think about this. So for example, here's the label that I mentioned before. You can see it says trans fat 0, but on the ingredient list, partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. Hydrogenated oil means trans fat. They're not going to list it as trans fat because they know that we know that's not something good. So hydrogenated oil is how it's listed. That is what trans fat is. So both of these labels here, trans fat 0, because per serving, it's less than 0.5 grams. So technically they can round it to 0. And there's a lot of tricks also. You can see here that they just lowered the serving count on this upper left one. There's 9 servings in a package. So if you sat down and just felt super snacky, you actually might end up consuming several grams of trans fat, even though you're under the impression that it's 0 trans fat. So do be aware, hey, look, I think a lot of people don't want to say that these labels are intentionally misleading because, who knows what the intention is. But I do believe that sometimes a company knows it's going to sell more products if they continue to make it super tasty, but maybe don't advertise how bad it is for our health, right? That just is a pretty obvious business model when I think about a lot of these foods. So, in other words, it's up to you to protect yourself from some of these ingredients. You really got to take a look at what you're eating. All right, last thing I want to talk about as far as hidden toxins go are all these sneaky added sugars. And you might be thinking, sugar? What? How's that a toxin? Well, remember, sugar's not just about getting a couple of extra pounds and not feeling like you look good when you go to the beach over the summer. Sugar's something that when we consume it, especially when we consume too much, it begins binding to the hemoglobin in our blood and circulating in a way to where it's essentially scratching the inside of all of our blood vessels. And so this very subtle inflammation thing is happening to all your blood vessels if you're constantly consuming sugar. Let me show you how sneaky sugar is. Because again, why is there so much added sugar? Because we have a huge sugar tooth. If something is sugary, it's delicious. And if it's delicious, we buy more of it. So, in a lot of ways, these businesses are giving us what we keep voting on. So it's up to you to think, is this really something that you want to be consuming and doing to your body? It's not about extra pounds. It's about the damage that's being done to your blood vessels. So consider that. Let me show you some examples. And by the way, when you read these ingredient lists, don't be fooled. There are so many different names for sugar. So look for all these names: dextrose, corn syrup, glucose, agave nectar. Boy, agave nectar sounds so healthy. What? It hits your bloodstream just the same as all these other sugar products. Maltose, molasses. Molasses sounds natural. It might even be organic, but it doesn't mean that it's good for you. So let's take a look. So first of all, got to know this. The American Heart Association says your limit should really be, for women, 6 teaspoons of sugar, and for men, 9 teaspoons of sugar, right? They're not saying we need it. They're not saying be sure and get your 6 or 9 teaspoons. No, they're saying if you've got to eat all this added sugar, try to cap it at that amount. But certainly if you can eat less, it's going to be better. And by the way, for kids, it's less than that. Less than 6 teaspoons of sugar, right? So, in fact, other recommendations I see are somewhere between 3 and 6 teaspoons of sugar. That's not very much sugar at all. Let me give you an example. You have 1 can of soda, that is 10 teaspoons of sugar, right? And I have known people that drink multiple cans of soda throughout the day. So, and I get it. It tastes good. It's caffeine. You're trying to cope. You're trying to get through the day. But I encourage you to consider, if you're one of those people, switch it to something else. At least switch it to a diet soda, or maybe really try to switch to flavored water or just plain water. Get yourself off that sugar tooth, because it's really doing a number on your body. 1 can of soda far exceeds what we recommend as far as your maximum amount of sugar in the day. But guess what? There's worse. There's worse items that you could be consuming, like this venti, you know, the biggest one, the Frappuccino. Can you imagine? 16 teaspoons of sugar. Oh, my kidneys just immediately start like throbbing even thinking about that. And we're not even talking about all the grams of fat from that whipped cream. So be careful, because if this is something you might say, oh, just once in a while I enjoy this. I mean, hopefully that once in a while is like twice a year, because if it's once a week, you're doing a number on your body. So do be aware. But let me show you all these other little sneaky hidden sugar ones. So for example, dairy-free soy milk. And it might be organic soy milk. And you might be thinking, hey, that's healthy, right? Well, if you choose the chocolate one, easily you could be getting 4 1/4 teaspoons of sugar per cup. So be aware. Look at the sugar on the label. Peanut butter, it depends on the peanut butter type. There are sugar-free peanut butters or almond butters. But if it's just a regular run-of-the-mill type of peanut butter, just a tablespoon or 2, and you're already getting some added sugar in there. Not too bad, really, but be aware, when I eat peanut butter, it's more than 2 tablespoons for sure. I can abuse peanut butter. I can't buy peanut butter. I'm addicted to it, quite frankly. Okay, this is one that gets my wife. She loves these granola bars. But each one of these granola bars is just 2 1/4 added sugar. And you think, wait a minute, what? Isn't that I thought those were healthy. Granola is one of the highest glycemic index things that we have as far as just snack items go, meaning it hits your blood sugar right away. When you have something with a low glycemic index, it means it has a lot of fiber, and so it goes into your blood slowly. But if it dumps in there very quickly, you're definitely going to get that spike of insulin, and that's the cycle that leads to type 2 diabetes. So be aware of some of these seemingly healthy snacks. To me, that's really just a dressed up candy bar. Oh, I know I'm a bummer. My wife still enjoys these, and I try not to wreck her enjoyment. But if you're trying to cut back on sugar, this is one to take a look at. All right, here's a sneaky one. You might be feeling like, oh no, we're eating healthy. We've been cooking on our own, and we're using tomato sauce and making meals. Choose your tomato sauce wisely, because a lot of tomato sauces, they want to sell, and they're delicious because they add so much sugar. Imagine just a 1/2 cup of this tomato sauce has 2 1/4 teaspoons of sugar. That's a lot. So think about what sauces you're choosing, and for that matter, dried fruit. You can get dried fruit that's sugar-free. If you don't, it's loaded with sugar. Like these, just 6 slices of these dried mango, 2 3/4 teaspoons of sugar. Salad dressings. This is not very much salad dressing, just 2 tablespoons, and you almost have a teaspoon of sugar. So some of these salad dressings can be very sugary. Flavored yogurt. This is one where it should be a health food, and they've turned it into a junk food. Sorry to tell you. Try to get sugar-free or just plain yogurt, right? Plain Greek yogurt is delicious. It just takes a little bit of your tongue getting familiar with, right? We're so used to that blueberry flavor dancing on our tongue and covering everything else up. You're really not even tasting yogurt. It's the blueberry flavoring and the sugar. So just a small amount, 5.3 ounces of this sugar has 2 3/4 teaspoons. So it's a lot. And I'll tell you, this was one of the most surprising for me. Barbecue sauce. Just 2 tablespoons. And I don't know about you, but when I eat barbecue, I'm eating way more than 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce. And that has 2 3/4 teaspoons of sugar in it. So a lot of these sauces are very sugary. I know, I'm a bummer and I'm sorry. Hey, you should know the truth. Maybe we should start this presentation. Do you want to swallow the blue pill or do you want to swallow the red pill? But if you really want to know what you're eating, take a look at that label, be aware of it. And I do believe, hey, you can enjoy these things. It's great. But if this is something that you're eating on a regular basis, choose items that are going to get you under that. If you're a female, under 6 teaspoons of sugar, right? That's just 24 grams of sugar. Or if you're a guy, that's 9 teaspoons. That's just 36 grams of sugar. That's not very much, right? But if you want to protect yourself, protect your kidneys, your blood vessels, your vision, all the places in your body with tiny capillaries, those are what get hurt first by excess sugar consumption. So, hey, I only tell you because I love you. Be aware, check on your labels, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, George. That was 3rd in a series of 4 grocery shopping hacks. So we have one more of those for you before the end of the year. Well, that concludes our show for tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it. I think you would agree that there's been lots of fun and informative material. So we hope you guys have a good night. See you soon.